Just a whole different angle to the mathematics.
I like the checkers and like the tic-tac-toe games. And we had to like look at it and like draw it out. It's like a challenge. It's like a different style.
We looked at the angles and the shapes.
Fun, inspiring, and interesting.
I never had all these tools sitting around me during math classes.
It's more of a visual for them. They're able to understand this new way.
Really bringing a cultural perspective to math learning.
It just helps them to really understand it on a different and deeper level.
I think the number one piece was engagement.
This idea of collaboration and communication.
Math, it's such a foreign concept for a lot of people. They're really fearful of it.
Spatial reasoning is one of those untapped areas of the curriculum. It's often an overlooked, undervalued piece of the curriculum. We know now from almost 35 years of research, it underpins most of the mathematics we learn. And so this idea of really spatializing things like geometry, things like the spatial strategies we use in board games, really underpins a lot of the future mathematics that kids will do in a really playful, very visual way.
I think it started last year with just some general conversation with our consultants at the board office. And at one time we talked about saying, wouldn't it be nice if we could have First Nations, Métis, Inuit content through other subject areas? We started very simply with looking at artwork. Spatial reasoning is composing and decomposing. So breaking things down, putting it together. So that First Nations, the woodland style of art we used, because it's embedded heavily with imagery found in nature.
Decompose, what does that mean?
So our activity simply was, let's take a look at composing and decomposing of figures, so shapes, and then we threw the art piece in.
I think anytime you give them something to work with their hands, you're much more likely to capture the majority of them than you are if you're just doing a lot of teacher-directed math. When they talk about the manipulatives and picture them and then have to actually convince their partner of a certain theory that they have, I think that just puts them all on the same playing field.
Can we use these? Let me see what's in here. Oh. And that's how you make use two triangles to make a square. You can use these two smaller triangles
To make a smaller square.
to make a smaller square.
Yeah.
It's like family together.
Yeah.
The lessons not only, I want to say, have become fun, but they become very engaging. The kids feel like they're not doing math, that they are doing more art to come up with a bigger picture and really getting to the foundations of what some of the math is all about. It's really shown that not only are the kids more engaged, but they do remember what's being taught.
It makes learning easier because it's usually with all the textbook stuff, and then with this we get to see it math from a different perspective.
When I think about math, I don't really think about the cultural context, or I self-describe as a math nerd. So I don't really think about that. I think about it just as math for math's sake. Whereas the cultural context, I think, kind of acts as a hook for those people who don't self-identify as mathies.
What attracted your eye to those pictures? Maybe even the first thing. Ava? Colors? Absolutely, me too.
How do you relate math to First Nations? You find that it's not quite a stretch. You might be using different cultural manipulatives, so not the Western manipulatives that we have. You might be using more things from nature, things you would find outside, rather than what we can get out of a plastic container.
No, because Human, so we have to human. Oh, look, it's like a human. There's fish. No, there's
Where I'm able to draw out some of the math, they remember that, but then they want to take it one step further, where they want to be able to see, well, where else does this exist? Or if First Nations has this, I wonder if there's something in my culture that might be equivalent to what that's all about.
This is the head. Kind of looks like a red flower if you that's the
What else you making?
Well, I'm gonna make I'm gonna make an orange snake or maybe a blue snake.
Okay. When the kids were doing the wampum belts, and so they had to use chart paper to graph it out, we actually had teachers asking, well, what does it mean to have a wampum belt? What is the history behind it? Why is it being used? Just that casual storytelling goes really far in terms of learning.
1 to 5, 2 and 4, 3 and 3, 4 and 2, and then 5 and 1. So
One of the things I've found with various new initiatives into different pedagogies is that things that tend to be intended for one small group tend to be beneficial for the large group as well.
it's like a family math night. There are different stations. The parents or anyone from the school board can go around. We have to ask some questions to the people, and you can also play a game of bingo.
I like the tangrams. They gave me a great challenge. You wanted to make a big triangle, and then you wanted to make a square. The triangle was the hardest thing.
It's a celebration of the kids showcasing what they know, but it's also an opportunity for discussion and storytelling through that First Nations. It's a connection of culture, it's a connection of spirit, it's a connection of learning, it's a connection of curriculum.
Yeah, like as you can tell, it could be 2 triangles or a square. 5, 1, 4, 2, 3, 3, and it has symmetry.
We didn't just like look at the directions and figure out. We actually got some help.
I did it. Yeah, they did an excellent job, and they knew what they were talking about, their enthusiasm and energy. It challenged me. I liked it.
I'm at Station 5. We're doing a tic-tac-toe type of game, and we're also doing another game where it's like checkers.
There's a board game and there's rocks on it, and it's like checkers. You had to jump over the other person's rocks.
Did you win?
No.
No, I won.
You won. All right.
It's a long game. Yeah, the part flash really helped me with angles. Most of the time when I was doing math, it just really didn't work out with me. So when I thought of acute and angles, and then I thought of native, and I thought that these angles really work with shapes, and so I just found my way around.
It's nice for them to see how the kids are learning and what type of tools they're using, so that they can kind of understand when their kids are coming home talking about math or showing them the types of math that they're doing in different ways than they would have learned maybe 20 or 30 years ago, that it's more of a visual for them. They're able to understand this new way.
When I can see students talking about their learning and explaining their learning to parents, that in itself is really empowering these things that we call 21st century skills in kids. This idea of collaboration and communication, this idea of really thinking outside of the box and viewing things in a different perspective. But the fact that these games are being run by kids really gives them an opportunity for leadership, and for their parents to see that leadership blossom right in front of our eyes is pretty powerful stuff. Pretty inspiring also.
think kids nowadays are a lot more colorblind than we were. They don't see differences. They considered everybody equal. So they're really, really interested in learning about First Nations, and they think of it as something that's really cool. And they also think about the injustices that these people have gone through, and they just can't wrap their minds around it, how people could think that way, because they're not raised that way anymore. I think it's really opened their eyes to a world that they can change, I think, in the future.
You know, my daughter used to have a famous line, my teacher doesn't want me to do it that way. And now I feel like I'm lucky to be a teacher, because now we say, which way works best for your brain? I'm excited for parents to be immersed in it so that we can all share the journey together.
This type of learning is really dependent on people stepping up to the plate and saying, there is a lot of things I don't know, but we're willing to learn it together. And I think that transcends into their classrooms and transcends into the community and into their schools. And I think that's a big testament to the type of teachers that were involved in this inquiry in the first place. So,
how do you look at a subject? Too often subjects have been siloed, and you're told to look at it just through that moment, through that lens. And our own curriculum is designed where First Nations is woven through all the subjects from kindergarten to grade 12. So it's a common thread, but we're too busy looking at how it's been done in the past. And these teachers have shown that you can look at it a different way and still get across and still teach the core concept, and not a silo, and not a fact or a figure. We can Google those nowadays.